Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of the Fantasy Table. I am taking over as somewhat of the host instead of Luke. He's out this week, but instead, I brought on a little friend of mine. He actually goes to U with me in one of my classes. Connor, what's up?
What's up, Theo? Thanks for having me on. I've been wanting to join this podcast for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the comment and I was talking about it with Luke, and we were just kind of getting in the rhythm of things. And we didn't really feel like a guest was perfect, but then coming into week 13, we were like finally getting into it, and I was like, I think Connor would actually be like a fun add into this. And so Luke unfortunately wasn't able to make it, but we got Connor now, so it's great. How are your
Yeah, I
fantasy
appreciate
teams
it.
doing?
Well, I'm huge into fantasy. I got 5 teams, Theo. I don't know how that stacks up against you guys. You guys are the experts. The one team that I have like a main league in, it's $100 buy-in, and I am currently tanking because I'm sitting at 3-9. Yeah, I'm just dishing out good players for like people like Christian Watson. I got like Javonte Williams is like a keeper, so big believer in Christian Watson, and I'm hoping I don't know if he can get to the keeper level. I don't think so, but I'm just kind of shooting for him in all my leagues. So
So it's more of a just keeper league, not dynasty.
yeah, the keeper league we get up to 3 keepers. We can keep nobody if you want. I'll probably only keep Javonte Williams, and then I have a dynasty league as well, where I have Brees Hall. So he just basically carries my team. I'm just trying to build around him. So
That's good. All right. Time to get into the news. There's a lot to unpack here. A lot of injuries happened this week. Also a lot of people coming back. So first off, a little Thursday night preview. Damian Harris is week to week with a thigh injury, and he will miss today. Although today is Wednesday, you're going to be seeing this on Thursday. Jacoby Myers and the wide receiver end for the Patriots. He's starting to feel better, and he avoided significant injury in his game on Thanksgiving. Another wide receiver for the Bears now, Darnell Mooney, is out for the year. He was placed on IR. I expect Chase Claypool to pick up a lot of those targets, but who's to say when Justin Fields is hurt? They're talking about his injury and whether if he's going to be participating in practice. Opinions vary, so it's very hard to kind of gauge where he's going to be in next week or in the following week.
I also think Theo for Fields, honestly, it's not going to hurt him by not having Mooney out. In my opinion, I think Fields is honestly he's still probably going to put up the same amount of numbers just because of that rushing upside that he obviously has. And another guy to maybe look out for aside from Claypool is David Montgomery. Obviously, with Herbert still on IR, Montgomery at least probably going to get around 20 touches a game. So he's another guy, at least a flex play, I feel like, for the next couple of weeks still as well.
Yeah, I'm high on Montgomery. If you saw in the previous seasons, whenever his backup gets hurt, it always occurs like around this time of the season. It happened earlier this time, but he just goes off. It's just like the first half of the
Yeah.
season, it's kind of mediocre, and you're like, all right, why did I draft Dave Montgomery? But he gets lucky with his backup getting hurt and just sees so much more of a workload. And Justin Fields, he's worked with targets, like with barely any targets for his whole career. So to see Mooney be out for the year, uh, it would be Claypool, Brian Pringle,
Mm-hmm.
Equanimus St. Brown. I mean, is it much different from what he had
Yeah.
before? Not
It's just
really.
not. That Chicago offense is just so gross, honestly. And I mean, also back to you talked about Jacoby Myers. And he had the injury, and then against the Vikings, he played like less than like 25% of the snaps, and he had like 9 points. I don't know if I feel safe playing him against Buffalo. Obviously on Thursday night when they play against Buffalo. I don't know if I feel safe starting Myers. Would you?
he said he's feeling better. So it's not quite the positive answer you're looking for. Um, I would say I'm gonna wait till Friday for that practice report. And if he's a full go in practice on Friday, um, I think he's too solid of a wide receiver. They depend on him so much on third and fourth downs that it's kind of hard not to start him in the flex, but it all depends really on Friday and whether if he practices.
Yeah.
So right now I don't have a clear yes or no for that one. Moving on, Matt LaFleur said today, that Wednesday, that he expects Aaron Rodgers to play on Sunday. This is following yesterday or Tuesday when LaFleur said that he did not know much about Aaron Rodgers' injury. We know that's his thumb and his ribs that are causing him troubles. Connor, do you see Rodgers performing well? I know you just said that you're a big Christian Watson guy.
Yeah.
Christian Watson's still gonna have that same impact, even with Aaron Rodgers battling through injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had 3 straight games, I think, of at least 21 points. And you're like, okay, well, he's got those touchdowns, obviously, but 2 of those 3 games, he's had over 100 yards, Theo. So Watson, I think, honestly, at this point, I'd give him a lineup lock status, even with Rodgers, possibly like with that injury, might not play, might play, I don't know. And then that last game, he plays, Jordan Love comes in that second half of the game. And then, he had the touchdown to Watson. So there's no reason to think that Watson's value would even go down at all. I think he'll be just fine. I think that shows that he's also a good player for Dynasty as well, because he already has a rapport with Jordan Love. So
Yeah, I mean, even after his slow start to the season, he's really picked things up now.
yeah,
Trade deadline's pretty much over for most leagues. I know some leagues still go all the way up until the playoff time, but he's the get of the season so far. If he continues how
yeah.
he's playing right now, I feel like he's going to be the top waiver wire pick of the season.
He's given me Amon-Ra St. Brown vibes. I'm not gonna lie, Theo. Remember last season how he had like those last like 6 weeks, I think, where he just blew up, and then everybody's like, "Oh, he's gonna be really good." And then he was drafted like first 5 rounds this year. I think if he has another week or two, he could be just like St. Brown last season.
Yeah, I mean, and even Christian Watson blew up a little bit earlier than St. Brown did last year. So that's even more evidence of how much he can impact the Packers in the future.
Yeah,
Uh Stafford, another quarterback, this time for the Los Angeles Rams. Stafford's status going forward is similar to that of injured Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp, according to Adam Schefter. And Sean McVay, the head coach, said that he will most likely not play on Sunday. This is worrying news. I know. I'm going to talk about this later. I guess I could just drop it now. Allen Robinson is down, out for the season. So now it's just Van Jefferson as the wide receiver one. And they're gonna have who played quarterback from last week?
it was Perkins, I think. He came
Perkins, yeah. Um, that's difficult. I mean,
Yeah,
that Rams offense has sort of just become nothing now. It's not fantasy relevant anymore. You see Kyren Williams, Cam Akers, all of a sudden battling for running back snaps. Henderson was waived, picked up by Jags. He wasn't used too much. Um, it's just now you got Perkins at quarterback. It's an offense that is not going to go anywhere or produce any points for you in fantasy. So I do like Van Jefferson as like a possible flex entry here and there. Late little bit of a foreshadowing, but
I
it's
honestly
just
think the Rams are a fantasy nightmare at this point with Perkins
yes.
at QB. Kyron Williams, Van Jefferson, they're like streaming targets this week. But even though I'm leaving him on the bench, I'm not starting him. You thought Cam Akers was going to get a lot of volume, and then Kyron Williams shows up and takes that from him this last week. And now Van Jefferson is starting. I mean, he's been okay when he's been healthy, but still, I just don't trust Perkins. I need to see that he can be a legit fantasy producer for those wide receivers before I even just like consider putting him in at a flex spot.
Yeah, at this point, if I'm Sean McVay, if I'm the Rams, I think you just shut him down for the season. Call it,
Yeah,
just call the whole year off. You already traded
disappointing
away.
season.
Yeah, you already traded away your first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're just playing for a better second round pick at this point, if they have their second round pick. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a mess this season, and they will have a hard time improving off of it because they have barely any draft capital.
Yeah.
So moving on, popular QB streamer, Jimmy Garoppolo, he took a shot to his knee last week, and it was the same knee that was surgically repaired last off season. So they're being cautious on how he's feeling throughout the week. I think he's going to be limited in a lot of practices this week, but I have not seen anything yet indicating that he is going to be out. Travis Etienne got hurt last game, foot injury, but Doug Peterson said that his reason for holding him out was solely precautionary. I wouldn't worry too much about this. I mean, it's honestly a positive that Doug Peterson sees ETN in a way where like you can't worsen this injury further because we're going to need you later on. And JaMycal Hasty did fine working in that role. He scored himself a touchdown too. Of course, ETN is going to be a much better player and in a much better position, but it wouldn't hurt picking up Hasty this week if you are kind of betting on getting a flex tier running back if ETN injury happens to worsen, but I don't think it is. I think he's going to be back next week at close to 100%. For the 49ers, back to the 49ers, Elijah Mitchell sprained his MCL in his other knee, and again, the timetable is 6 to 8 weeks. And then we also have Christian McCaffrey, who also has a knee injury. They're saying he likely has tendonitis in his knee. Saw a tweet, one of the one of the medical professional doctor loves playing fantasy football too. He noticed that just below McCaffrey's knee, there is a band that he often gives his patients with tendonitis. So, and that kind of aligns with a lot of the reports, the injury reports that are saying that McCaffrey is battling through a persisting knee injury. It doesn't really go away that quickly. I mean, if you keep active with it, it does help, but it's not going to completely heal it, especially at the level of athletic play he's in. So monitor that as much as you can. Connor, you have anything to say about this?
Well, I think it's just so unlucky that these guys just keep getting knee injuries. And I don't know who the doctors are on these 49ers teams, but they need to make some changes because they can't afford injuries, especially to like two really good running backs. And this is a team that could potentially win the NFC, in my opinion. And when you have Mitchell McCaffrey dealing with these knee injuries all the time, you're not going to be able to make an NFC championship push because you're missing two of your best players. So, I'm maybe thinking if I own McCaffrey and you don't have Mitchell, you need to think about what another option is that third string guy because he could be called upon because like you said, tendonitis doesn't go away. And that's a tough injury, especially Elijah Mitchell on the IR for 6 to 8 weeks. You need to have a backup plan because if you lose McCaffrey at any point, that's tough for you if you don't have the backup and then somebody else gets them, because right there you're losing your best player on your fantasy team. There's nobody else that's going to be better than him. So
Yeah, backups right now are TDP and Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason, I believe, was getting most of the workload whenever they were off the field. So I think we mentioned last episode to pick up Jordan Mason because of Christian McCaffrey's knee injury. And of course, this is news again, since as we see, it's not going away. Another running back injury, Najee Harris's abdomen. They pulled him out last week. Well, not Monday night. So yeah, you get it. Um, Mike Tomlin said that it wasn't serious, thankfully, because a lot of the worry was that he suffered a hernia. But thankfully, that's not the case here. Tomlin said it was not serious, but he will miss practices and a lot of the practice playing time. So the Atlanta game is a maybe. However, Jaylen Warren, who was out last week due to a hamstring injury, is good to go. So if you are kind of betting on Najee Harris missing this week, Jaylen Warren's a good pickup. I feel like a lot of Najee Harris owners right now are like near dead last or already have Jaylen Warren. So I mean, if he's on your waiver and you have a spot that you're willing to drop someone, I would say go for it. You can't, it doesn't hurt. I mean, Warren's back to being healthy. He liked the week off that he had. So um kind of a little bit of question in the Pittsburgh Steelers backfield, but things are sort of looking up. For the New York Jets, however, their backfield is just brutal. They're just
yeah.
Brees Hall, like who are man. There's a lot of injuries in the Jets backfield. I mean, Brees Hall, of course, is the biggest one. Michael Carter, he missed practice on Wednesday. So it's now up to Zonovan Knight and Ty Johnson. If I had to choose between the two, I'm going Zonovan Knight, even though Michael Carter is probably only going to miss this week and be back next week. No Ty Johnson because he's just the complimentary back to Zonovan Knight and Michael Carter. So whoever's available, he's just going to play second fiddle to them. Zonovan Knight, a lot of his production last week was based off of carries, yards, and he still put up a nice production. Ty Johnson, a lot of his production was based off of that touchdown that he had. A Johnson touchdown is not something I'm willing to bet on if I'm looking at both their names in the waiver wire. Zonovan Knight is one of the top pickups for this week. I'd say even if Ty Johnson's available in your way, it's not worth it stashing him. I don't see any future value in him. And I also don't see any future value in Zonovan Knight. Once Michael Carter gets back, he's going to start picking up the load more, and Zonovan Knight kind of backing up his role. So a little bit of a plus this week, not so much for the future. Another news, Allen Robinson is out for the year with a foot injury. I mentioned that before. Tough break. Jamar Chase is expected to be a go this week. And Bengals are playing hot. They're a red hot team, and adding reinforcements like Jamar Chase is going to be huge for their playoff push. And I know they're already set to be in the playoffs, but at this point, it's improving your seed. And I think Jamar Chase is the perfect addition to this Bengals offense. They just needed to put them over the top and become dominant again.
Well, if they win this week too, because they're playing against KC at home, if they win this week, they'll have that tiebreaker. They'll be one game behind in the winning column against the Chiefs. So this game is probably their most important, honestly, on the year, because if they win this week, they have a good chance of possibly ended up with a top 2 seed in the AFC. And before Chase was back, obviously T. Higgins was just having himself a few great weeks, and he was great for fantasy managers. And I don't think a lot of that production is going to go away, obviously, with Chase coming back, because we know that Higgins can still put up some wide receiver one, like low end wide receiver one numbers, even when Chase is there, because that Bengals offense is just elite, and Burrow can supply enough yards to both.
I agree. I just got a notification from Zoom that we have 10 minutes left to record. I'm not like Luke, we don't have the Zoom Pro. So I'm gonna go speed round. Last bits of this news. Andy Reid is being cautious about Kadarius Toney, and he's most likely a no-go this week. Josh Jacobs won't practice much with his calf strain, but don't worry, he's going to play this week, and I feel like the breaks that he's going to have for practice is going to help him. J.K. Dobbins returned from IR. Don't know how much of a snap share he's going to earn this week, but something to monitor for the playoffs. In his return, I could see him competing with Kenyon Drake heavily. And Mike Williams, again, did not practice. We thought that he was going to be better after this week, but clearly he's still struggling. The bye week teams that we have this week are the Arizona Cardinals and the Carolina Panthers. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, James Conner on the Panthers, DJ Moore, Deontay Foreman. Tough losses, but it's nothing going to be compared to what it's going to be next week, where there's like 8 teams on a bye. In week 14, it's like one of the most must-win weeks. I mean, right? Most playoffs start week 15, and having 8 teams on a bye next week, it's a testament to how well you built your depth throughout the fantasy season.
Yeah.
Before we move on to our next segment, let me tell you a little bit more about our sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy platform where it's just you versus the projections. You can pick more or less on many player projections, such as receiving yards, rushing yards, receptions, and many more on any player on any sport that you watch. All you have to do is pick between 2 to 5 players, and you can win up to 10 times your entry. So download Prize Picks today and play daily fantasy sports with us. Make sure to use promo code BLUESTABLE when you sign up. If you use our code BLUESTABLE, you will get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So if you deposit $10, you will get $10, making it $20. If you deposit $50, you'll get an additional $50 from them, which will make it $100. If you download 100, you'll get $100, making it $200 total. So go ahead, download Prize Picks today and use code BLUESTABLE to get that deposit match.
So now going on to our main segment, we have the starts and sits. I'll start with my first 2. Treylon Burks, he's been on fire these last 2 weeks. We've seen a lot of targets going his way from Ryan Tannehill, and it's a plus. It's a plus for an offensive system, which really heavily depends on Derrick Henry, and is now slowly shifting its way to being more balanced. Of course, it's going to be more Derrick Henry all the time anyway, but seeing Burks get out there as a first-round pick as well, getting in some targets, leading the team in target, it's great to see. This week, he plays the Eagles. It's around the same rank as the Packers and the Bengals in wide receiver fantasy points allowed, which is the last 2 teams he played. And since the Eagles are a great team overall, so are the Titans, though. Titans have a great record, but I'm expecting a positive game script for passing, and that goes well for Treylon Burks. My second start is Kirk Cousins. I know that's Connor's guy right there, but yep. Kirk Cousins plays the Jets at home. Kirk Cousins has played his best fantasy games whenever he's been at home. And to top it all off, this game's at noon. It's not prime time. Jets, I know they have a stout defense, but I'm really trusting Kirk and his weapons and Kevin O'Connell's offense to lead the way and kind of break the mold of the Jets defense. So I'm expecting a big game for him at home.
And then I got three, but I'm gonna only go with two here. My two main ones, Derek Carr at quarterback. I think the Raiders are really on the come up, and they've kind of shown that Derek Carr has been the player that he was last year, the last like month. He's been very consistent. He's had at least 2 touchdowns the last 4 weeks. He had 3 last week. And they're playing the Chargers this week in a divisional game that I expect is going to be a shootout. So he's going to probably have at least 20 points you can expect. So he's a safe play. And then Nico Collins. I know that Texans offense is horrid, but when he's been healthy, he's had a solid floor. So if you got, I don't know, somehow you end up with like Hopkins and DJ Moore, you don't have any depth, maybe putting in Collins. I mean, he's a dart throw, but he's got a solid floor of like 9 to 10 points. So he's a decent play at least to have on your roster if you're not going to play him.
Yeah, I mentioned Nico Collins last week to Luke about some of the waiver wire pickups. And again, he's just getting so much of the team targets. And in week 14, wait, I don't know if the Texans have already had their bye though, but even in this week, I mean, with DeAndre Hopkins missing, I mean, and DJ Moore, you might be in a situation where you need a wide receiver. So put in Nico Collins if you're desperate enough. I mean, that's quite a bit of depth, but he's going to be solid. So I agree with that start. Derek Carr, I actually had to double check you on that. I was shocked to see how well he's been playing in the last 3 games in fantasy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He's ranked QB 15 right now in just normal QB scoring. That's surprising to me. I mean, fringe QB 1. Yeah, I mean, with Kyler Murray out,
play him. He's a great
Derek
pickup.
That's a great pickup. So now for our sits this week, as I mentioned before, Rams offense is down bad. And this now, and unfortunately, Van Jefferson, who has in the past put up wide receiver 1 games for the Rams, mostly last season, he now has a chance to be the wide receiver 1 on the Rams. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be putting up that wide receiver 1 game this week against the Seahawks, who will rank 6th in wide receiver fantasy points allowed. And with Stafford most likely injured for as long as Cooper Kupp is, it's a difficult situation for Van Jefferson to try proving himself. So I'm out on him. Jeff Wilson Jr. is also a sit for me, unfortunately. It's his revenge game, right? I mean, him and Mostert both were for the 49ers. So you expect a big game, but I think the 49ers run defense prevails. They're number 1 in the league in stopping the running back. I just don't expect too much of Jeff Wilson to get it going for Miami.
I mean, I think for Wilson though, if Mostert doesn't play, I would honestly still start him because I think he usually has a pretty solid floor. Anyways,
I actually agree with that a little bit. But Mostert was questionable and he was limited at practice today, I believe. But I mean, I think Miami just chucks it all game to try keeping it up. But if Mostert is out, like not even like limited, it's just like clearly out, I'd say start Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, I can go quick here too, Theo. Van Jefferson, you already had him down, but he was my first sit. We talked about it already with Perkins at quarterback. That Rams offense is just gross, so I wouldn't even play anybody on that team. And then my other one, Kyron Williams, another Rams player. I know he's a hot streaming pickup this week, but how about no thanks on any of the Rams players? So you can take
Rams are no good for us. No good for us this week.
I mean, you can take the risk if you want that dart throw, but it's not going to work for you. So there's going to be no bullseye from any Rams players.
Yeah. We're just going to keep it short, I guess, this week. I mean, unfortunately, we can't ramble on as we usually do as it is with Luke and I. But yeah, unfortunately, I do not want to pay for Zoom Premium. So we're just gonna have to keep
fair
it
enough.
like this.
Fair enough.
Very fair. But thank you guys for watching. Luke, I don't know if he'll get to it. Very difficult situation he's in, but click link, subscribe, like, whatever you gotta do, promote the podcast, and have a great day. Luke is so much better at these outros than I am, but I'm learning. This is a learning experience.
It was great. It was great.
Thank you. But thank you guys so much. Have a good one.